Hey everyone, welcome back. Spider-Man's costume is iconic around the world. Around the world, I think there are very few people who are not aware of this image of Spider-Man. They might not know about Peter Parker or Uncle Ben or Aunt May. They might not even know about any of the villains that Spider-Man fights, but they will know Spider-Man, and I think that the reason for that is because of this iconic classic costume of red, blue, and webbed mask. It truly is a cultural phenomenon. I think it's on par with Batman's costume and Spider-Man's costume. Superman's costume. It really is. It's one of the greatest of all time, no doubt. And I suppose it's difficult to improve on the original formula when the actual formula itself is so amazing, right? The Amazing Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man costume. Um, People have tried sometimes to meddle with the formula. For example, in the 90s, a time which is renowned for bringing out the worst in comic book costumes. I take you, for example, to the mighty Thor, who had a big, massive shoulder pad thing going on with a very gaudy, sort of almost S&M type of outfit, and his blonde hair just turned into a like a 1980s Poison concert goer hairdo. The point being, I think the 90s and certain comic book, I think Marvel was more guilty of this than perhaps other publishing houses, but they were guilty of a lot of shoulder pads and leather infiltrating their costumed heroes' wardrobes. And of course, if you look at who can forget the infamy surrounding the costume of the Invisible Woman from the Fantastic Four, right? Sue Storm, or was it Sue Richard by that time? I can't recall, but yeah, her costume practically almost sort of turned invisible, most of it. There was a lot of cleavage, there was a lot of flesh being shown, and I'm surprised that nobody bought a suit for indecency. But anyway, I'm sure a lot of people didn't complain for obvious reasons. The point being that sometimes it is very difficult to improve on a original classic formula, and like these costume malfunctions that I'm telling you about, it just goes to show that sometimes when you try, it doesn't work out very well. It's that old saying, isn't it, that no matter how hard you try, a sequel to a great movie can never compare to that original great movie. And oftentimes it's just a disaster. However, there are times when the sequel is as good as, if not better, than the original. Take, for example, classics such as The Godfather Part 2, or even Superman 2, the Donner era, Superman 2. These are all fantastic movies, which one might argue are literally just as good as, if not better, well, arguably better than the original. And I think that even with certain costumes, you can sometimes improve on the formula. It's very rare. It's very rare, but I think you can. So, Exhibit A, the black costume, which made its debut in issue number 8 of the Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, which came out in the 1980s. And when this particular comic came out, when this costume, this particular costume was introduced, um, I was floored. I thought it was a fantastic costume. It just exudes so much cool, so much. I don't know. To me, it always seemed to give Spider-Man a little bit more gravitas. I think with this costume, his adversaries would take him a lot more seriously. Look, don't get me wrong. I think I've always thought that the red and blue is a great costume. I mean, it's a great costume. But this black costume, I mean, he's a spider. Spiders are black, and spiders are a little menacing. This is a menacing costume. And the funny thing is that if you were to pitch the ideas, right, someone had just come up with the idea of Spider-Man, they were pitching ideas for costumes. You described the red and blue costume with the webbing and the separate gloves and the separate sort of boots, and that sounds really interesting. And then you describe this black costume, which is basically a black bodysuit with with a white giant white spider on the front and the back, and people are going to think, what? It seems like a no-brainer that just from hearing the pitch, the red and blue seems like the obvious choice. But on paper, when you see this black costume, um, it just I think it actually blows the I think it blows the red and blue away actually, in my opinion, because it's I always think that Spider-Man should be a little menacing because, his powers are spider-based. He is Spider-Man. Like Batman is Batman. He's Spider-Man, and Spider-Man should be a little menacing. There should be a touch of that danger around him, right? And I think with this costume, there is. Just imagine that you're a criminal and you look up and there's a black clad figure coming down the wall straight at you, and that's Spider-Man. I think you're going to be pretty freaked out. I mean, look up again, and it's a colorful, gaudy, costumed guy with webbing on his face. Yeah, you'll be freaked out, but I think you'll be more freaked out with the black costume. It has that. I mean, look, I can just go on and on about how much I love this costume because I genuinely do, and it's it's fantastic in its simplicity, and it's fantastic for the fact that it, of course, introduced the symbiote, which would then later on become Venom. I mean, this is Venom, but it's Venom untapped. When this costume latches itself onto Eddie Brock, of course, we get the Venom. And well, here's the funny thing: I've never been a fan of the Venom look overall. That big, bulky, muscular, monster-faced, offshoot of Spider-Man's sort of costume. I've never been a fan. If you take Venom as he's portrayed now, and you take this image of the symbiote costume, to me, this is a more elegant, more aesthetically pleasing version of this black costume than the Venom thing ever was. Here's an idea, and you can take this as seriously or as non seriously as you like. Why not have an R rating Spider Man movie in his black costume? Blood, guts, broken bones, Peter Parker out for revenge against some person who's aggrieved him. And look, let's face facts. Peter Parker is no stranger to tragedy or to adverse events. I mean, who hasn't he lost at one stage or another? What difficulty has this guy not faced? In fact, that's like a whole episode in itself. The tragedy of Peter Parker's existence. He's just a punching bag for the universe. It's crazy. But because of that, if you want to make a dark, gritty Peter losing it completely and lashing out at the world, this is the costume to do it in. This is the one. This is a costume that would instill fear in the heart of his enemies. But look, that's just my comic book fan subjective opinion, right? And I have no power in these things. Who will listen to me? Probably no one. But maybe some of you who are listening may agree that this would be a good idea. Look, violent movies in the superhero genre clearly work. Deadpool is a prime example. Blade is a prime example. And Blade movies, especially the first Blade film that came out quite some time ago now, I would say, I think it was late 90s. Pretty sure it was the late 90s actually, before 2000s. Anyway, Blade is, in my opinion, a far more superior movie, a far more superior product overall than the Deadpool films that we get now. Um, and Spider-Man would actually fit really well, I think, into that Blade universe. In fact, this is the costume with which you have a Spider-Man and Morbius uh, crossover. Marvel movie versus Spider-Man versus Morbius, a movie in its own right would be amazing if they do Morbius right as well. Of course, that's also very, very important. I think that the Morbius movie that came out from Sony a little while ago was pretty rubbish. But if they make the right movie and they have the right costumes, i.e., this black costume Spider-Man, would be amazing. I guess at the end of the day, it all boils down to the point that I made earlier, and which is that sometimes sometimes you can get you can revise a formula and actually make it work really well. Um, admittedly, that the 90s was a strange time for Marvel costumes, but I think if this idea came out in the 90s, it would have been a massive hit, just because it would have been so superior to everything else that was out there at the time. Um, and even in the 80s when this first came out, I mean, it had a few. It lasted for a fair bit. It had a good run. It covered the full gamut of the Spider-Man titles that were out there at the time. Um, and I suppose the decision to and I suppose this must, I mean, look, it might have been a long standing goal anyway to take this symbiote and turn him into Venom because it was a symbiote to begin with. But I wonder if this black costume had stayed, whether the public would have eventually forgotten about the red and blue and just accepted the black one outright. Um, I would have been happy with it. I actually would have been happy with that. I suppose there would have been a nostalgia sort of element where I would have missed the red and blue, but if they had continued with the black costume, I wouldn't have cried about it. But maybe there would have been die-hard, traditionalist comic book Spider-Man fans who wanted the red and blue. Maybe that's why they sort of teared this black costume off into Venom. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, maybe I'm in the minority on this one. Let me know what you think, guys. Um, Again, for me, I stress that the black costume is superior in terms of the sheer sort of like visual stunning effect. But you might think that no, it's the red and blue all the way, red, blue, and web all the way. Um, but look, each to their own. It's good to have differing opinions. That's what makes the world so interesting. And again, thank you so much for listening in to my rambling. Really appreciate it, guys. And like if you can, and subscribe if you will. I will see you in the next one.